Imagine a world where women, against all odds, wielded power in a time when men dominated every throne. Picture a queen who outsmarted her enemies, ruled with an iron will, and left a legacy that history almost forgot. What if I told you some of the most powerful rulers of the medieval world were women whose names you've likely never heard? Today we're diving into the untold stories of forgotten medieval queens who didn't just rule, they reshaped history. Stick around because by the end of this, you'll discover three incredible women whose courage and cunning changed Europe forever, and I'll share a personal insight that might just make you see history differently. Let's step back into the Middle Ages and uncover their secrets together. The medieval world was a brutal place. Think muddy villages, towering castles, and constant wars. Most people imagine kings in shining armor, or knights charging into battle when they hear Middle Ages. But women? They're often pictured as damsels in distress or silent figures in the background. That's the myth we're shattering today. Women like Eleanor of Aquitaine, Isabella of France, and Jadwiga of Poland weren't just sitting in towers waiting for rescue. They were strategizing, negotiating, and sometimes even leading armies. These queens faced a world stacked against them, where laws, traditions, and even the church often limited their power. Yet they found ways to rule, and rule well. My fascination with these women began when I stumbled across a dusty history book in a library, and their stories hit me like a thunderbolt. How could such powerful figures be so overlooked? Let's start with Eleanor of Aquitaine, a name some of you might recognize, but whose full story is even wilder than you'd expect. Eleanor was born around 1122 in what's now southern France, in a region called Aquitaine, a place richer than most kingdoms in Europe. At 15, she inherited this massive duchy, making her one of the most eligible women in the world. Imagine being a teenager and suddenly owning half of France. Talk about pressure. She married Louis VII of France, becoming queen, but this wasn't a fairy tale. Louis was pious and reserved. Eleanor was bold, outspoken, and loved the vibrant culture of her homeland. Their marriage was rocky, to say the least. But here's where Eleanor's story takes a turn. In 1147, she joined the Second Crusade, not as a bystander, but as a leader. She rode alongside her husband, dressed in armor, rallying troops. Chroniclers of the time were shocked, some even scandalized, calling her behavior unladylike. But Eleanor didn't care. She was there to inspire, and she did. The crusade itself was a disaster, but Eleanor's presence made waves, showing the world a queen could command respect on a battlefield. Now, you might think that's where her story peaks, but Eleanor was just getting started. Her marriage to Louis fell apart, partly because she didn't produce a male heir, partly because they just didn't click. In 1152, their marriage was annulled, and Eleanor, still in her 20s, didn't waste time. She married Henry Plantagenet, soon to be Henry II of England, a man 11 years her junior. This move was a power play. By marrying Henry, she brought Aquitaine into his control, creating one of the largest empires in Europe, stretching from Scotland to the Pyrenees. As Queen of England, Eleanor was a force. She governed Aquitaine, acted as regent when Henry was away, and raised 8 children, including future kings Richard the Lionheart and John. But life wasn't all smooth sailing. Henry's temper and infidelity strained their relationship, and when their sons rebelled against him in 1173, Eleanor backed them. Big mistake, or maybe not. Henry imprisoned her for 16 years, but even from a castle cell, Eleanor's influence lingered. Her sons still sought her advice, and when Henry died in 1189, Richard freed her. At nearly 70, she ruled as regent for Richard during his crusades, negotiating alliances and even traveling to Spain to arrange his marriage. Eleanor lived until 1204, over 80 years old, outliving most of her enemies and shaping 2 kingdoms. Her life reads like a Hollywood epic, but it's real, and it's why she's one of the most unforgettable queens of the Middle Ages. Let's shift gears to another queen, one whose story is less known, but just as gripping. Isabella of France, often called the she-wolf of France. Born in 1295, Isabella was the daughter of King Philip IV of France, raised in a court dripping with wealth and power. At 12, she married Edward II of England, a match meant to seal peace between the two nations. But Edward's reign was a mess. He was more interested in his favourites, like Piers Gaveston, than in governing, and his neglect of Isabella and the kingdom sowed seeds of resentment. For years, Isabella played the dutiful queen, bearing 4 children and enduring Edward's mismanagement. But by the 1320s, she'd had enough. Edward's new favourite, Hugh Despenser, openly disrespected her, even seizing her lands. This was the breaking point. Isabella didn't just sit back, she took action that would make her a legend. In 1326, Isabella pulled off one of the boldest moves in medieval history. She sailed to France, rallied an army with her lover Roger Mortimer, and returned to England to depose her husband. Imagine the audacity, a queen invading her own kingdom to overthrow the king. Her campaign was swift and brilliant. Edward's support crumbled, and by 1327, he was forced to abdicate in favour of their son, Edward III. Edward II later died under mysterious circumstances, and while rumours swirled that Isabella ordered his murder, there's no solid evidence. What we do know is that Isabella ruled as regent for her teenage son, restoring stability to a kingdom on the brink of collapse. Her regency wasn't perfect. Her alliance with Mortimer sparked tensions, and by 1330, Edward III overthrew Mortimer to take full control. But Isabella wasn't cast aside. She lived comfortably until 1358, respected as the mother of one of England's greatest kings. Her nickname, She-Wolf, was meant as an insult by her enemies, but I think it suits her strength and cunning. Isabella wasn't just a queen. She was a revolutionary who proved women could seize power in a man's world. Now let's travel east to Poland, where Jadwiga of Poland, crowned king in 1384, redefined what it meant to rule. Yes, you heard that right, king, not queen. Born in 1373, Jadwiga was the daughter of Louis I of Hungary and Poland. When her father died, Poland needed a ruler, and at just 10 years old Jadwiga was chosen. The nobles didn't call her queen because the title implied a consort. They crowned her king to signify full authority. This wasn't just a technicality, it was a statement. Jadwiga was no figurehead. By 13, she was negotiating with foreign powers, and at 14 she married Jadwiga of Lithuania, uniting Poland and Lithuania into one of the largest powers in Europe. This union wasn't just a marriage, it was a strategic masterpiece that strengthened Christianity in the region and countered threats from the Teutonic Knights. Jadwiga's reign was marked by her compassion and intelligence. She personally led diplomatic missions, once riding out to meet rebels to avoid bloodshed. Her piety was legendary. She donated her jewels to fund a university in Krakow, now the Jagiellonian University, one of Europe's oldest. But her life wasn't all triumphs. The marriage to Jadwiga, a man much older and initially pagan, was controversial, and she faced pressure to produce an heir. Tragically, Jadwiga died in 1399 at 26, shortly after giving birth to a daughter who also didn't survive. Her death was a blow to Poland, but her legacy endured. In 1997, she was canonized as a saint, a testament to her impact. Jadwiga's story resonates because she wasn't just a ruler. She was a visionary who balanced strength with kindness, proving that power doesn't always need a sword. These 3 queens, Eleanor, Isabella, and Jadwiga, shared a knack for defying expectations. Eleanor turned imprisonment into influence, Isabella toppled a king, and Jadwiga united nations. But their stories aren't just about power. They're about resilience. In a world where women were often pawns in political games, they played the board like masters. What strikes me most is how their challenges mirror struggles we still face, fighting for respect, balancing ambition with duty, and carving out a legacy in a skeptical world. I remember visiting a medieval castle in France a few years back, standing in a cold stone hall where queens like Eleanor might have walked. It hit me then. History isn't just dates and battles, it's people, especially those who history tried to erase. Let's zoom out for a moment. Why do these stories matter to us today? For one, they remind us that leadership isn't about gender, it's about vision and grit. Eleanor's diplomacy, Isabella's rebellion, and Jadwiga's compassion offer lessons for anyone navigating a tough world. Plus, their stories are a wake-up call to dig deeper into history. Textbooks often glorify kings and knights, but queens like these shaped Europe just as much, if not more. If you're as fascinated by this as I am, try visiting a local museum or checking out primary sources online. Chronicles from the Middle Ages are surprisingly juicy. It's like stepping into a real-life Game of Thrones, minus the dragons. Before we wrap up, let's talk about why these queens were forgotten. History has a bad habit of sidelining women, especially those who didn't fit the mold of obedient wife or saintly martyr. Eleanor was too bold, Isabella too ruthless, Jadwiga too young, yet their impact was undeniable. Eleanor laid the groundwork for England's empire, Isabella stabilized a crumbling kingdom, and Jadwiga built a powerhouse in Eastern Europe. Their stories aren't just trivia, they're proof that power comes in many forms. If this video got you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which queen story surprised you most? Have you come across other hidden figures in history? And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more medieval secrets coming your way. Speaking of secrets, our next video is going to blow your mind. Ever wondered how a group of quiet monks changed the course of history? From preserving ancient knowledge to shaping medieval culture, their story is wilder than you think. Join us next time for How Medieval Monks Changed History, Medieval Religion. You won't want to miss it. See you then.